Hello and welcome. This is Samiel Carolina. Welcome to this space where we are having courageous conversations for us to explore how we can create the most extraordinary life we are meant to live here on earth. This morning, as you can see from my face and from the light here, I am with a very special guest who is doing extraordinary work for us women, discovering our special places in our body related to our sex, to our pleasure, to our joy, and to a true deep place of empowerment. She is Olivia Bryant. She is a sexologist and founder of Cervix, a global movement teaching women how to heal and awaken the powerful and pleasurable energy of the cervix. And I want to welcome you here, Olivia.
Thank you so much, Samiel, for having me. I really love having courageous conversations. Obviously, it's the kind of topic where I have them all the time.
Certainly, with your work, yes. And your work is so extraordinary. You know, I've been following you for a year now. Yes, you know how social media is. You don't see me, but I see you, yes?
Yeah.
And yeah, really, I want to share with you and also with the audience how I met your work. Briefly, essentially, what happened last summer to me is a massive and ugly breakup, but much needed breakup. My heart was broken double times. My partner and also a sister of mine. So there was this double betrayal that happened for me to initiate me into this, deeper place of wisdom, of power, of voicing who I am and what I stand for, right? And what happened is that my body actually had started to shut down for months before the breakup. Yeah. I was really in this place of feeling very uncomfortable in my body, in my femininity, in my sensuality. My libido was underground, deep buried underground. I honestly thought something was wrong with me. And the distance with my partner became so huge. Really, I felt like frozen in my energy, yes, in my femininity. And I was trying to keep up my image, for my work. I work with women. So I was trying to pull myself together, and I said, this cannot be happening to me. I have so many tools and so many things, and I have done so much work on myself. This cannot be happening. How is this possible? And because I have a past of anorexia, I thought it was, my path to go deeper to that, although I was still eating, but I thought it was related to that. And what I discovered through the breakup is that my body was shutting down, trying to tell me something very important for me. And I was not listening. Yeah, although I listen a lot to my body, but that was a whole new level. Yeah. And the time, I was so, when I broke up, and so on the other side of the breakup, I was praying for, okay, how do I stay open now? Yeah, how do I stay, my yoni open, my body open, my mind open, how I can trust again, how I can receive love again, how do I stay with my heart open? Yeah, and as you and me know, the heart and the cervix are kind of the same place, or very intimately related. So I discovered that last year, that actually going deeper into the practices that I have with the JDEC, which I had for 4 years now, it took me all the way down into my cervix to say, because I discovered when I was doing receiving a yoni massage, that the womb was tilted forward, hiding my cervix very, very deeply. I could not reach it. I was like, okay, here we go, Samiel. We have to open up deeper and heal all the wounds and all the emotions. And that is how I discover, reaching into the cervix and all the tools that are available for us to do this, which is nothing to do with sexuality, but really healing the heart space and knowing that the heart can never be broken, despite the experiences, and that everything serve us to go deeper into ourselves and to really truly empower ourselves and stay open and receive, give, show up for ourselves. So, and that's how I discover you, because there are not many people having this, grounded, well presented and well researched work that brings so much reassurance in these times where there is so much around sex and sexuality, but sometimes we doubt a little bit about the origins of this work. So I really, really appreciate, and that's why I invited you to this place.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I think our stories are so interestingly mirror each other. How our heartbreaks led us to our cervixes, because I won't go into my full story, because basically it's like your story. Heartbreak. And I was working in sexuality and had absolutely no libido. And here's what's really interesting that I've learned since, is that when you're in shutdown, when you have been traumatized, when you're upset, you've got this nerve called the vagus nerve, and it goes all the way from your brain down into the cervix. Now, if you're vigilant, as in if you're tense, if you're stressed, if you're going through emotional trauma, your vagus nerve, it talks to the lower abdomen region. And so you actually that's why you freeze. It's a survival strategy. I only just learned that through the cervix work. Okay, so that makes sense why so many women feel frozen in the area of their sexuality, because we've got to deal with so much stress. We have a history of sexual trauma, whether it's just mild shame around sex or whether it literally is abuse. So, it's very easy if you're going through emotional turmoil for your sexuality to close down. And mine had done that. That was exactly what was happening to me. And so I also wanted to just give myself some healing. And that was when I discovered that I had this numb cervix. And, the process of healing the cervix again is basically trying to wake up the nerves or create a neural pathway to this place in the body that's so deeply hidden. Because think about it, no one sees it, just your doctor, maybe. And maybe your lover might have felt it. But how intimate are we with this place deep inside of our bodies? And it has a lot to teach us, which I was to find out as I began making the work. So it's an amazing way to come back home to ourselves as women and to claim a part of ourselves that really we still haven't yet. And neither is science or medicine properly looked into this place in the body. So that's what we're doing. So it's really exciting.
And how did you discover your own, this place in yourself? A doctor discovered for you, or you were doing your own research and saying, how do I heal myself from this?
Well, actually, the cervix for me, I had HPV and the abnormal smear and the abnormal cells. So I had that laser treatment on my cervix. And I remember that day because it was really traumatic. I had nurses holding my hands and holding my legs. And it was just it was so full on. And I think that might have been the day that my cervix went numb. And so I didn't have a relationship to my cervix at all. And the only other thing that I remember about my cervix is, when you have sex, and you might not know, have you ever felt a sharp pain in sex at right at the top? Say it's the wrong angle or too deep. It's and I'd felt that a few times. I didn't really kind of understand what was going on at that time. But what I realized, and have now realized through my work, is that these are a couple of the reasons why there's basically an epidemic of numb or painful cervixes. And so it wasn't until I went to my bodywork session with Matt that I actually started to pay attention to and ask the questions, well, why is my cervix numb? And then, so I started this group because I started stimulating my cervix because that was the prescription. So start like awakening it, like start developing this relationship, because it's actually been proven by science to be a trigger point independently of any of your other genital anatomy of really amazing orgasm. But if it's numb, it's not, right? So many of us are walking around without our full pleasure potential activated and without awareness of this place. And so after just setting up this group, because, you know, when you start stimulating a numb cervix, it's not that interesting. It's kind of like, I'm bored.
So what's happening?
Yeah, like nothing's happening. And let me tell you, sitting with nothingness is the scariest place to be, because you feel like you'll never feel again. And eventually, so I started the support group, which became Self Cervix, and discovered that many women have not a great connection to their cervix. It's been uncomfortable, it's been painful, and so it's sort of in a state of trauma. And so what we're doing is learning to love this part of the body and really start to like see what happens when I start to awaken it.
Yeah. Interesting. So I mean, I guess I also had a surgery on my cervix years ago, and what was happening at that time. Now, from my perspective on my work, when the cervix is needs attention, there is something going on in how or who you open up to. What do you allow to enter into this space? For me, the cervix is the second gate to your womb temple. So first, the yoni, and then the cervix, and then it's like who you are allowing into your space.
Yes, absolutely.
Doing this healing work on myself and going back into my life, I said, oh well, okay, I was with a person who I was not sure to be with, right? And so this makes me, of course, as women, how how many times we allow things in our bodies, but also in our lives that we are not really sure, really grounded in our truth, right? So how is can you elaborate more about this?
Yeah,
what is your perspective?
Yeah, this is like my favorite topic. This is so I've got a whole kind of series in the program called Consent and the Power of Choice. And so one of the things that the cervix taught me, and one of the reasons why so many of us have sort of traumatized cervixes, is because we've either crossed our own boundaries because we haven't really listened to what's true for us. And we've wanted to be juicy, and we've wanted to be available, and we've wanted to be open. And so we don't really listen, and we let someone inside before we're properly aroused. So the cervix is still low in the body instead of pulling out of the way like it does when you're aroused. And so you start to listen to your body cues, like what is right for me right now? What is not okay? And so working with the cervix, you start to pay attention to the subtle signals. How deep do I want to be entered? Am I ready to be entered? And by whom? So am I safe with this person? You don't have to look, if you're in love with the person, look, that is the ultimate, right? Because your heart is fully open, and then everything is open. But you can also be in a space where you feel safe for other reasons. Like maybe you've got, I actually was talking to this woman, this is kind of edgy, but she said that she was at this quite a wild sexual party, and she had a cervical orgasm, completely like blew her mind. I said, why do you think that was? And she thinks it was because it was the anonymity that caused her to feel safe. So she could open, because that's what we actually need to feel so relaxed that we can open. Now, if you can't hold a boundary and say, I'm not ready, I need more time, then your nervous system can't properly move into like a really good state of immobilization, where you're able to just drop layer of like tension, and then you open to kind of emotional release, and then you open to pleasure. Now, if you can't hold a boundary, your nervous system won't go there. But if you can hold a boundary and say, hey, I need more time, or you're listening to yourself and you're like, I'm actually a no to going into full penetration with this person. then you're much more able to relax and go into these deep trance-like spaces, because these deep places of pleasure, they occur when your brain is shut off. It's a no mind space. You're just in a deep kind of a place of a deep state of consciousness. So now what's so interesting about that, when you start thinking about, well, this is what the cervix is teaching me. Everything is a macrocosm, right, of the microcosm happening here in my body. It's happening out here in the world. So you start to look at, when am I saying yes when I mean no? When am I letting someone walk all over me? Where am I not able to ask for more pay or, greater recognition in my workplace? Basically ask for what I want. So this is how we start training ourselves as women to have a voice. And with my work, it starts in the body space. So this is my body, this is my sacred space, and this is who I allow to enter and when. Now I apply this to doctors as well. So when I go and I have a pap smear and I'm lying on the table, I will say to the doctor, I would generally sort of frame it, and I'll say to them, I'd like to have a conscious experience and take charge and lead this experience. And so I'm lying on the table and I'll say, I'll put in the speculum. They open it up. I say, can you wait? And I'll tell you when I'm ready for you to enter with the swab. So I relax myself completely and I really feel my cervix relax. And then I say, okay, I'm ready for you to enter. You may enter. And then they go, I pull the speculum out. Sometimes I'll look at my cervix with a mirror. And then there's an empowered experience.
Yeah.
Now my body belongs to me. It's not, I don't give you the authority to say when and how I'm entered. And this is kick ass. It's really it's a really beautiful way of really learning our worth as women. Yeah. Because we haven't in the past. We haven't been able to have that kind of strength. And look what now our cervix is, this place of orgasm, like really amazing, beautiful orgasm, is shut down.
Yes, we have generations and generations where have experienced their bodies as objects, treated in any way other people want and please, and we have this deep in ourselves. And so it's so important to experience our bodies in a whole different way. And also if there's this boundary place, with our children, with our partners, in sex, in everywhere that we go. Yes, we need to occupy our space. This is a huge
it's a topic. Huge topic. And look, it takes practice and it takes time. It takes patience. Because this is deep conditioning. Yes. We go along with touch since we're born. We've been going along with touch because we're passed around as kids, And so our nervous system we just learn to disassociate, or just, we just kind of go with it, and we sort of have to hold a bit of tension, or what we call armoring, in order to just kind of withstand it. So it's just a pattern and a habit that we continue in our intimate and personal relationships, where we just kind of go along with things because we don't want to upset the other person. We don't want to hurt another person's feelings. We don't want to feel like we're cold, hard, sort of, kind of prudish, where there's so many negative kind of labels put onto women if we just hold a boundary, and so we've got to start to learn how to overcome those fears of being like, okay, so that person thinks I'm cold, but actually, no, I've just actually done something for my self-love. Like, that feels good for me. And so this is going to I feel like this is going to take 50 years. I wish it would take less, but it's going to take years for us to start retraining how we touch each other and really, really respecting each other as sovereign. Like, this is your space and may I enter,
Yeah, I see it in my work, when I do the women's circles, there is the conscious touch exercise, and women, have difficulties voicing how they want to be touched by other women, or not, or maybe saying, I don't want to be touched, just presence is good. It's so simple, so deep, and so life transforming when we can listen, and then voice how is it that we feel,
Yeah.
what is it that we need. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's a thing that says, to enter a woman, you need to enter her heart first. And how many of us have really felt the need for intimate emotional connection, and before our body will fully open, like,
Yeah.
the state of total disconnected sex at the heart is numbing. It's just kind of going through the motions and scratching an itch, and what we're actually, and look, no judgment around that. We there's different reasons why we want to have sex. What we're doing here in this work is trying to look at how can we feel more, how can we be the most empowered that we can be, and create the most connected lovemaking and intimacy that we can. And it really is through creating more sensitivity inside of the vagina and the cervix, so you don't need so much friction. You feel a lot more through communicating and feeling like it's safe for me to speak my truth. It's safe for me to say, let's go slower. I mean, look, I don't know about you, but I've been in situations where I've gone way faster than I was probably ready to.
Yeah.
Have you?
Totally. Yeah. So many
Yeah.
times. I mean, looking back in my life, when I started with the jade egg, and last year with my cervix, I was like, oh my God, what I have been doing all these years.
Yeah, but it's hard
Overriding
to ask.
my body so much. And then I learned that even when you insert a tampon, which I don't use anymore for years now,
Neither.
when you are in a rush in a public toilet, you need to change your tampon, and you go like, whoop, and then your body goes like, oh my God, what are you doing? I was like, so many times.
I know. I don't use tampons now either. And it's so many times where we just kind of, man, the thing is, we have to really start getting the preciousness of this incredible place in our bodies. And, like you've said before, we've got centuries of self-loathing towards this part of the body. And many, many women still carry self-loathing towards their vaginas. They don't want to look at it. They think it's ugly. And, and so it becomes this meaningless, it's just an object, and still, so developing this relationship, it's kind of like, when you are in love, any part of yourself that you can become in love with, you start to be able to show up as more of a whole person. There's less that you have to hide. And this is where the power aspect comes in.
Yeah. Can you speak a little bit more about that? Because, for me, how I see it, and I'm interested to see how you experience through your work, the empowerment and the creativity that comes with accessing our pleasure, our joy, our vitality and our health. We, as a woman, we need all this, to create what we want to create, whatever that is. A family, anything, right?
Well, this is kind of slightly woo, but like, think about this as like, it's your birthing center. So if you're not birthing babies, it's still a birthing center. So, like, energetically, you could say, if you're interested in yoga, it's the house of the second chakra, which is your place of creativity. And so you start working with this place in the body. I mean, cervix came completely out of my cervix. It still is coming out of, like, working deeply with this part of my body, because it does make me feel very grounded to the earth. Now, if you're not grounded to the earth and you're up in your thinking mind, creativity doesn't really come from your thoughts. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but you'll have your most creative ideas when you're just out on a run, and you'll just get like a download of inspiration. You're in your body. And so the process of working with the base of your body, the root of your body, it's very connective to the ground. And so, a lot of sexual practices will work on drawing the energy up. We don't. We work on actually rooting down as women. We need to get down into our earth nature. And that is where our sense of belonging comes from, our sense of worth, and our sense of power. Because when we feel connected, when we feel like we're valued and we have a place, then we start to find our voice and our right to speak it. Yeah, and so it's so funny how these things, they're just all connected. So, it's also, obviously when you're working with your cervix and you're going inside, you're balancing your hormones, and just generally, this is extremely important for women to be tending to their vaginas, especially if you're not having sex a lot. This is really important to just be massaging the area, making sure like you're not carrying stress, because this is where we carry so much stress. Like right now, let your belly soften. Oh, just let it go for a second. Jeez.
Yeah, no, it has to be tight and nice because my dress.
Oh my God, I do this thing and it's actually become like one of my key practices is I like imagine my cervix sighing and like my whole vagina just like sighing down to the ground. Like we don't have to have these tight vaginas. Like actually what we want is a relaxed vagina. We want a welcoming, a receptive internal world. And you're not going to get that from like, squeezing really hard and, pushing all of this stuff. And this is really beautiful. So all of the, I'm so passionate about it. So all of the stuff that we want, whether it's our healing or whether it's bliss, it comes when you are utterly relaxed in a state of effortlessness.
Yes.
And that to me is the biggest irony, because here we are trying to fix, trying to make it right, trying to change, trying to work right, trying to work really hard. But actually, if we could just have faith and do less and learn how to relax and be present, that is where the magic happens. You think about it with creativity. Anything that's being created, it comes in the present, right in the present moment. You're not thinking.
Fully open.
Yep, you're just relaxed, and and it just comes through.
Yeah, totally. I love what you say, because in my work, which is around soul alchemy, which is working with the memories and rewriting everything at a cellular level, it's also I might take half an hour, 40 minutes to relax the woman, so she can do the work. When you are soft, then you can alchemize the things, not when you are trying to understand something.
Yeah,
bring it.
That's very interesting with the cervix and the vagina, because the tension that we hold is not allowing that alchemical pleasure response to occur. So what we need to do is soften the cervix and allow it to open and drop down. And we have to do the same to ourselves. Like it's like I feel like the cervix is just like this little mini version of us, like in there, needs the same things that we need. It needs love. It needs to relax. It needs some attention on it.
But can I share something that I did the other day in preparation for this call? So I remember, how it feels. This was 3 days ago. I was, having a hard day. I mean, a lot of creativity coming in, and I was just so much in my mind, going up, 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 up in my thoughts. I was like, okay, I need to get something. Went out in the garden, couldn't relax. So like, okay, I'm going to interview Olivia, so I'm going to practice with my cervix. And I literally did, I think, 10 or 15 minutes maximum of, the deep breathing, and then going in, massaging. It was mind blowing. I felt like I slept for 3 hours siesta. I was just like, wow. And I was so vibrant. I was like, oh, this is very effective, actually.
It's so good.
About it, anything else, would take hours. And I was just so open and relaxed. And my mind was so clear. And my emotions were gone. The self-doubt was absolutely gone. It was just so amazing.
I want to just talk about that for a second, because it's important. And, so I mentioned the vagus nerve before. The vagus goes from your cervix through your chest and up through your throat to your brain. Now, this is an incredibly intelligent nerve. It's like an emotionally centered nerve, and it knows when you're safe and it knows when you're not safe, and it will give your body signals. And so if your vagus nerve is toned. So if people have high anxiety, doctors will insert these chips into you that kind of tone, like work your vagus nerve so that it helps you calm down. Now, instead of inserting a chip, I'm proposing that we just stimulate our cervixes. And, what we noticed is that you get a sense of groundedness
So much.
and a sense of clarity and self-esteem, and just like, like other things are happening, like you've got oxytocin flowing probably, so you're activating a whole kind of chemical thing in your body. But it's this vagus connection that interests me, like being able to have this kind of if you do this work consistently, your button to calm down will be faster. Your calm down rate will be faster. And if you've ever talked to anyone who's had their cervix removed or had trauma to the cervix in a big way, there's often a lot of anxiety present. A lot of anxiety. I spoke to a woman who said that she felt like she'd lost her center and she just couldn't find her ground. And I thought that was very, very interesting. This is truly a place in a woman's body that, let's meet it and discover what's there, because science it's slow, and there is stuff happening, like, so for example, there's proof that it is orgasmically a trigger point. There was research done on people with spinal cord injuries who had no feeling in the rest of the genitals, and they could have a cervical orgasm. Now, there's other research happening around whether the medical procedures do actually cause trauma, numbness, and it looks like they do. So there's also research on rats where they cut the pelvic nerve, and with constant cervical vaginal stimulation of the rat, the pelvic nerve grew back. And so, look, we could theorize that it's possible to regenerate the nerves at the cervix and to create this neural pathway, but the proof is yet to come. We need more work in this space, but as always with female sexuality, these things take time. And in fact, you won't find a picture of the vagus nerve connected to the cervix yet. It's just kind of dangles in the abdomen. So so Dr. Barry Komisarek's work has taken it to the cervix. So so it's slow, but it's going to be the next clitoris, basically, because the clitoris was only just kind of recognized.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah. So just to start to wrap up, is this work advisable for women who are menstruating, who gave birth, who are pregnant, who are in menopause?
Yes, this is a great question. So if you're planning on having a baby, this work is vital because you want to start working with your cervix and softening the tissue of the cervix and the vagina. So that's really important. If you're pregnant, it's a no. And you wait until, you wouldn't stimulate your cervix until about 3 weeks before the birth, as long as it was, it's okay if the baby was born early, that it would be fine. So that's why you don't want to mess with the cervix unless, there's only very few people who would work with the cervix during pregnancy. So that would be a no until the very end of your pregnancy. Post-pregnancy, it's great for healing scar tissue. Postmenopausal, menopausal, perimenopausal women, definitely important. You need to keep grounded during this time in your life, and you need to keep your juiciness going. So it's very important. And during your cycle, when you're menstruating, this is going to be personal preference. Like your cervix is at its lowest point, so it's the easiest to touch. A lot of people feel kind of repulsion from bleeding, and that's an interesting topic on itself.
Yeah.
So yes, you can totally stimulate your cervix while you're bleeding. It's actually an advisable time too, but a lot of women feel kind of like they don't want to. So.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So I know you are starting a new journey for women who wants to reach their cervix and go deeper into the body. And so when do you start, and how does it go, and where women can?
Yes. So we start on the 1st of September, and we run for 21 days. And so if somebody listening to this wants to get in, I'm totally happy to offer 10% off to your listeners. and they just need to put in the discount code Samiel,
Hmm.
and they can receive that little offering. So I'd love to have some of your crowd in the course. If anybody wants to do it, we start on the 1st. So you can sign up over at selfcervix.com.
Wonderful. Okay, excellent. Okay, I will put the link down here so everyone can reach you.
Yeah,
Okay,
great.
that's great. Okay, Olivia, thank you so much for your wonderful work and for your light and for bringing this information to us.
Thank you so much for
Mm,
having me and for giving the cervix a voice,
mm,
Samiel. It's
mm,
been lovely to meet you.
mm. Excellent. Thank you so much. And well, go down there and empower yourself in this amazing way. It's just mind blowing what you find inside your body. And I will be seeing you on the next courageous conversation. Thank you so much.